All right, this is Sports for Real. Not going to be a very long live, but I had to say a few comments before the games got started today. Um, if you saw last night's game, Georgia Tech and Georgia went to 8 overtimes, and the Bulldogs managed to pull out a dramatic victory over their in-state rival. Now, the problem is that I have with that, Georgia still has to play the SEC championship game, which is going to be between the winner of the Texas A&M game, and that's going to be a barn burner. I'm going to come on later on the day before that game kicks off. We're going to talk a little bit about Texas A&M and Texas. But the problem I got with what took place last night, there's a lot of uncertainty going on about how these teams will be selected for the playoffs. I mean, the rankings and the CFP rankings, they don't ever match. Well, the commenter last night was saying, well, if Georgia gets by Georgia Tech, and they guaranteed a spot in the playoffs because they're not going to be penalized for losing the SEC championship game. Well, I disagree. I'm disagreeing because this is the same situation Georgia was in last year. They went to the conference championship undefeated. They lost to Alabama, and they got left out of the playoffs. Yeah, there's more teams now, but you got 2 losses. And if you lose to Texas, even though you already beat Texas, then how can you justify a 3-loss team making the playoffs over somebody else who is possibly a conference champion? So if you're going to automatically slot the SEC teams into the college football playoffs, then what is the point of the rest of the regular season? And I think the commenter, I think his name was Testator, I think he got out of pocket when he started talking about Georgia pretty much guaranteed a slot if they beat Georgia Tech. Well, the game itself was, I actually sat through and watched the whole game last night. And Georgia, to me, I wonder if they're a playoff caliber team anymore. They're not hitting on all cylinders, and they're depending on late dramatics to pull these games out. A lot of the fans are now saying that the officiating took part in Georgia coming back. Well, Georgia was the home team last night, and the game was pretty much not in their control until Dan Jackson came in and he hit the quarterback, and the quarterback fumbled the ball, and Georgia was able to go in and tie the score. Now, what's controversial about that play, Jackson came in with his head clearly down, the crown of the helmet hit the football, which to me is good, solid football. But the rules nowadays says you can't do that. And even though it wasn't the head and the neck area, that still could be considered targeting. There were a couple other calls that the officials missed, but I don't think that was the reason why Georgia Tech lost the game. Georgia Tech had complete control of the game. When they came out early in the game, they're missing field goals and getting field goals instead of touchdowns. And being that Georgia is a team with a lot of heart, you can't beat a team like that by, hey, UP 4A 1E, yo, what's up? How you doing, man? You can't beat a team like Georgia unless you finish them. And Georgia has the history of coming back lately, but especially against Georgia Tech. They've done it to them several times over the years. That's good. But to say that they cheated, I'm not going to go for that because officials miss calls all the time. I think Georgia Tech is their own worst enemy in this particular case. I think they ran the quarterback too much, but what they did do, which is a residual of the Alabama game, Alabama quarterback killed Georgia, and Georgia Tech came in with the same kind of game plan. So if Georgia is to make it to the college football playoffs, despite losing possibly next week, the team that they play is going to be a running team. Now, the thing that favors Georgia, if they don't win the conference championship, they're going to go in as a low seed, which means they're going to have a tougher road and they're going to have to beat somebody on the road in their own stadium. So Georgia's going to have to win 4 games to get to the championship, to win the championship. But the way they're playing, I'm not quite sure if they're worthy of a championship opportunity because Beck, he's just not playing where he needs to be. Yeah, he gets a few throws in there every now and then, but to be consistent enough to get on that run a team needs to be on this time of year, I just don't see Georgia as that team to do it. But a lot of other interesting games has to unfold before the final college football picture is clear. Even though the games are taking place today, you still have the conference championship games, which would be the final determiner of who makes it where. But you're getting ready to have Ohio State and Michigan kick off. And you know those guys don't like each other. And in a game like today, anything can happen. Michigan's problem is that they just wide 16. How you doing? Michigan's problem is that they don't have a quarterback. And when you can't move the football against a team like Ohio State, eventually that's going to bite you. However, they do have the defense to compete with Ohio State. What team do you like? Which team are you talking about? You're talking about Ohio State, Michigan? Well, I think Michigan just don't have enough bullets to knock off Ohio State, but they're going to make it interesting for a while. And if Ohio State turns the ball over, then it's going to get pretty interesting. But I just don't think this year is the year that Michigan is going to have enough magic to get by the Ohio State Buckeyes. Okay, wide 16, say what team do you like? And you said the NFL. There's only one team in the NFL that counts wide, and that's the Steelers, man. We're going to the Super Bowl. Remember, you heard that from me first. The interesting thing about Pittsburgh is they play against a team like Jacksonville, or last week they lost to Cleveland. And the two other games they lost were against teams with losing records, the Cowboys and the Colts. They're not going to be there in the playoffs, so you don't have to worry about them playing down to those levels. But if they get into the playoffs and have a couple of home games, I think that Pittsburgh is going to be a dangerous out. They got the defense, and the other team that they're talking about Baltimore. Well, we can handle Baltimore no matter what year it is. We're going to be there to the end against them. And Kansas City, they got like 100 lives, and eventually those lives are going to die. They got by Carolina last week, and up next for them, we're going to see Kansas City later on, and they got by Oakland yesterday. So Kansas City, I think their days are numbered, even though they keep surviving, and they're surviving on the strength of their defense. So we'll see how that plays out. But again, Ohio State, Michigan, that should be an interesting game for a while anyway. But in the fourth quarter, you're going to have the Buckeyes pull away. You got it right, Wyatt. Go Steelers. You better go somewhere instead of beating around the bush like they always do. But we get a chance to get Cleveland in a couple of weeks, so we'll get revenge on that. Can't get the Colts, can't get the Cowboys, but we can get the Browns. A little measure of revenge there. Plus, Baltimore will be waiting on them, so they better tighten up or they're going to get beat by them. Now, the other game, Alabama, can they bounce back after getting beat up last week by Oklahoma? Speaking of the Ravens, I told you guys that Baltimore is they come and go as well as the quarterback can throw when the game is on the line. If you can slow that running game down, like the Steelers did, if you can keep the quarterback in the pocket when it counts the most, like the Steelers did, then you can beat Baltimore. But if they're able to run between the tackle, that's going to allow Jackson to get loose on the outside. And now let's pick your poison because now they're about to kill you. So when you think about Jackson, that's when Henry's coming through there. They're going to pop a long run on you. And that's when they become problematic. But I bring up the Ravens to say this about Alabama. Milroe is the same kind of quarterback to me as Jackson is. He's deadly dangerous running the football. But when the game's on the line, Milroe hadn't shown me he can do it. Yeah, he got a couple of passes off last year in heroic fashion based on misalignment by the defense, but that's not his fault. He did make the play against Auburn last year. And you know Auburn's going to be waiting on him this year. So if he doesn't play any better than he did last week, Alabama, we already know they're not going to make the playoffs with those 3 losses, but he might get knocked off by Auburn. Just a couple of weeks ago, we all had Auburn written off for dead. Now, I gave him life support because Hugh Freeze, I think, is a good coach. And he came up with one last week to knock off Texas A&M in overtime. And who's to say they won't come into Alabama and knock them off? It's going to be very interesting. Jennifer Bennett says they're kind of like NFL. What kind of NFL you like, Bennett? Miss Bennett? So Alabama needs to tighten up, or they might just get knocked off by Auburn. And that wouldn't look too good for the coach because he's already following a legend. And because he's following a legend, he's under unrealistic expectations to begin with. And to lose 3 games like they lost this year and to turn around and lose to Auburn, he might not survive his first year in Alabama. So it'll be interesting to see how this particular game goes. For his sake, I hope he beats Auburn because he might just be on the sideline with me. Jennifer says, I don't know. Um, you don't have a particular team? I'm a Steelers guy. Don't tell me you're a Cowboy fan. Um, Not a Cowboy fan? Okay, well, who's your team? The Raiders? You gonna be safe and pick the Chiefs like everybody else? Well, who do you think is gonna win the Super Bowl? Oh, the Lions? Well, I'm a closet Lions guy myself. I hadn't said much about the Lions, but I like all Detroit teams, but I hadn't told anybody too much about that. Boss Cedric 84 says I'm a Raiders fan. Well, you better get your quarterback, Raiders fan. And with all the excitement you had for your coach last year, I don't know how much longer he's gonna be there if he keep losing. They give him another half year, but if you make a major mistake like the Bears coach did the other day, you're gonna get fired too. But let's hope that doesn't happen to him. I don't wish nobody to get fired, but sometimes you put yourself in that position. And the Raiders, unfortunately, you come on too late against Kansas City, and you know they're not going to let the Chiefs lose a game if they can control it. And that's what happened to you on Friday. But but I think Alabama somehow, some way, they'll find a way to beat Auburn again. But again, Kellen Moore, if he gets beat today, he might be in trouble. All right, we still have loyal fans who have been sorry for like 20 years. Okay, well, I don't know if you've been like 20 years. You've actually been competitive. But my question to you is, do you like them better in Las Vegas or you think they should go back to Oakland? Even though it's not going to happen, but you talking about loyalty. Why should you be loyal to them if they pack up and move away from you, especially if you live in the Oakland area? All the Oakland teams ditched them. Golden State went to San Francisco. The Raiders, they went to Las Vegas. So why should you be loyal to a team that's not loyal to you? Let me know what you think about that. And then the final game that I want to talk about tonight is Texas A&M and Texas. I'm going to get more into that later on tonight. Um, I think there's going to be a very, very electric atmosphere because you know those two teams don't like each other to the point that Texas A&M left the Big 12 to go to the SEC in particular to get away from Texas. Now here comes Texas following behind them, and knowing that they might do that, they try to get A&M to renew the series for the 22 and 23 seasons, but A&M turned them down. They don't want to have nothing to do with Texas. So now they have an opportunity to go through Texas to get to the conference championship game. And the last thing they want to see is Texas coming to the SEC and make it to the conference championship game before they do. And this is their opportunity to get there. And it would be no greater gift to them if they can somehow get by Texas tonight. Just the Omega says, horns down. Have you been to Oakland? Are you from Alabama? Yeah, I've been to Oakland before. I got an uncle live out there, right off 98. You can look down the hill and see the shadow of the stadium, which probably soon to be torn down. Now that they're aged, they get their own stadium. So I don't know what Oakland is going to do. It's just another town in America that's about to fall down. No, I'm not from Alabama. I'm from Florida, but I'm American. I'm from everywhere. I stay in Oklahoma City. Okay, well, so are you a Sooner fan? Oklahoma pulled out one last week against Alabama, but they got LSU tonight. Can they put two in a row together? I don't know, but you know they got rumblers in LSU right now. People they don't like Kelly, but primarily he's not a Southerner. But now that he's not winning like they want him to win, and recruits are turning their back on him, he might be in trouble. But I wouldn't even worry about it if I was Kelly because somebody out there wants to play for LSU, whether he's the coach or not. I'm a fan. I just moved here from California. I like USC myself. Now, my problem with USC, that's a team that should be undefeated. But the coach, he made it $20 million a year, and he's coaching like he's worth $500,000 a year. He's supposed to have an unstoppable offense. Why haven't they been unstoppable? They controlled all the games that they lost, and they got knocked out in the last minute each and every one of them. Not once has a team run off USC. They've lost to teams they had no business losing to. Michigan don't have a quarterback. How do you lose to a team that doesn't have a quarterback, man? You explain that to me. But I think the USC, they'll be back next year. Who you think about running back, OJ? Who you think about running back? Who's the best? I think Marcus Allen was the better athlete. He's a better athlete because he can do different things. OJ was just a pure running back. They had Marcus Allen blocking out of the fullback position. He played other sports in high school. OJ was just a track man. Okay. I think overall, Marcus Allen was a better athlete, but if I had to take a running back when the game was on the line, I'm giving Juice the ball. I'm a Michigan fan. They got the number one quarterback. Listen, man, you can't say who's going to be the best quarterback in the nation. You might be the best quarterback in the state, but when you get into the college level and he sees everybody else is just as good as him, how likely is he going to stand above everybody else? So I think you should take that with a grain of salt and hope he's going to be the best college player coming in. And you got a good defense. If you had a good quarterback, then you have a couple more wins. But who you got, Bo Jackson and Barry Sanders? That's a good one there. I think that Bo Jackson is the meanest of all of them. So I think I would take Bo in that situation, even though Barry was a bad dude, really untouchable. But if Bo Jackson don't hurt his hip, then we'd be talking about him in the same vein as you would Willie, as Emmitt Smith and the rest of them. All right. But yeah, this guy, he turned down LSU, and now he's going to Michigan, they say. But he hadn't signed with Michigan either. Remember, these guys have all these opportunities to make a lot of money, so there's no guarantee they may end up anywhere until the last minute. And even if they went there, that doesn't mean he's going to stay 4 years. All these guys are now competing for NIL money, and whoever's got the better deal is where they're going to go. They don't care about winning so much the way that the fans care about winning. They only want to get paid. Keep that in mind. I think the goal of all time is Walter Payton. I don't know. But believe it or not, when you look at history and you look at all the eras the teams played, I don't like to hang Hall of Fame and greatest of all time on people, but I will say this. If you look at all three levels and the damage they did on all three levels, Eric Henry just might be the best out of all of them. He's this guy 12,000 in high school, 5 or 6 in college. Now he's got over 10 in the pros. We actually played against him in high school, ran over us. And it's not a good feeling to see one guy running over your team like that. And then when he goes to college and he starts running over them, and then he's in the pros and running over people, and the guy seems to get stronger. You know, he's on that, he's got this diet thing that he does, kind of like what LeBron does. And Henry, he might not get the Emmitt Smith mark, but when you add up all the marks, it's going to be hard to say that he's not one of the top 5 all time. They should not pay college players. Why you say that, man? You think about some of the guys that used to talk about how they used to walk around campus dead broke. There's somebody walking by them with their jersey on, and they're not getting a cent from that. But yet the boosters and the people in the stands and everybody else making money but the athletes. So you tell me, why shouldn't they pay college players? JC says LSU offered him $5 million. Michigan offering Underwood 10. He will sign with Michigan unless LSU counters a higher offer. I don't think LSU is going to counter anything. If anything happens, they're going to have somebody come and a businessman in the local community come and supplement whatever you might get. But keep this in mind. With that House versus NCAA ruling, the schools now also have to pay these players. So if they're saying $10 million nil, that's got nothing to do with what the schools now have to pay. They have to set aside a $20 million budget to pay the college athletes. So he might get another $2 million on top of that. So the sky is the limit now for these guys and what they can make. All right, Paul said they're only in college for 2 years, but they're between the ages of 18, 20. Normally, that's too young to get money. No, man. You got guys on YouTube making millions of dollars, and they ain't but 14, 15 years old. Yes, it does create egos, but if the guys aren't earning the money, they earn it. So my question to you is this, talking about the people on YouTube. They got a law going into effect down here that kids under 14 cannot have a social media page. keep in mind, I just told you there are kids that are making millions of dollars on social media. So is it fair to them if they are popular and they're under 14 that they cannot now make this money starting January 1st? Is that a good law or not? What you think? But yeah, egos are created. But if they're earning the money, I don't think it makes a difference how old they are. I mean, that 1962 stuff where you graduate from high school and go get a job at the factory and all that, that's out the window, man. That's not the way things go. And especially with jobs getting lesser and lesser, and there's really no need for a whole bunch of people. Well, let me say it this way. With technology, jobs are reduced. And if you don't get in somewhere where you fit, and if you can find a way to get beyond that without having to get into that race, then more power to you. And of course, as athletes, I think anybody wants to get paid. But in my age range, it was get to the pros. But now the colleges, that's the pros. So I try to tell my athletes now, look here, man, you guys got the opportunity of a lifetime. They don't want to work out. They don't want to do this. They'll put the uniform on and try to dress like the pros, but that doesn't translate to play on the field. If it was me nowadays, I'm working out before school. I'm going to college. I mean, going to class and do everything the coach wants me to do. And then I got me a routine after school. So I'm working out 3 times a day, man, just so I can get to college and get me some of this money. But does it create an ego? Absolutely it does. But if you earn the money, hey, you can't keep it. No matter how you get the money, then do you really deserve to have it? But I think because you earned it, you have the opportunity to do whatever it is you want to do with it. Now, I was going to get on to the track of NIL and how it's changing college football. But more importantly, I wanted to talk about the House versus NCAA ruling, which are going to make schools pay players, but it's also reducing roster limits. So kind of like the NFL, where they're going to have a certain amount of players, the colleges are reducing their rosters to 105. Since they have to pay them, why not limit it? But that's going to hurt the walk-on. And as a fellow walk-on myself, I got a lot I can say about that. But I don't want to get too deep into that right now because it's game time. I know you guys want to watch these games. I kind of wish I missed the stadium interest of the teams. And you can tell a lot about teams just by the way they come into a stadium or run out, onto the field. I can pick up a lot just from watching that. So I think I already missed that for Ohio State, Michigan, and got a basketball game tonight. So I'm going to miss the Texas A&M and Texas game when that starts. So keep an eye on those kind of things when you're watching these games because they can tip you off about the state of these teams as they're entering the field of play. But just a couple other words. Georgia, I'm not quite sure if they're fully ready for the playoffs the way they've been playing lately. You can't just turn the switch on and off, and especially when players are starting to get hurt now. Whoever wins this thing is going to be the healthiest out of all of them. And Georgia right now just don't appear to be that team, not this year. I think the window for them to win championships are closing, and that's going to affect them moving forward. Now, having said that, going to be some good games on the day. And if Boss Cedric 84, if you're still on, hey man, send me a comment in the email box, and maybe we'll hook up for an interview because it's not like me and you can go back and forth with this money thing with the egos and the Raiders moving to Las Vegas and all these other different things. So if you're still on, hit me up in the comment section, and we can rap about that later. JC says, do all college football players get paid? I thought only the good players got nail money. Okay, walk-ons won't get paid. No, that's not true. Walk-ons can get paid. If you saw the Georgia game last night, that guy Jackson who made the Georgia Tech fumble, he was a walk-on. So he said that you don't have to worry about scholarships anymore because of NIL money. But I think Georgia does it different. They take all the money and stick it in one pile and divide it among everybody, which is fair to a certain point, because if I'm sitting next to a guy, he's making $10 million and I'm making $500, I might not be too happy about that. It's kind of the same thing that you have in the pros, but you kind of expect that in the pros. But in college, Those kids, they don't want to hear that. I'm doing the same stuff he's doing. Why is he making so much more money than me? So in Georgia's case, it's my understanding that they take the pot of money and divide it up. All schools don't do that. And when you start going into the lower schools, I'm not for sure how they do it. Like at my school, Florida A&M, they can't survive without walk-ons. And if they're going to have to pay their players, I don't know how they're going to manage to do that. And so, yeah, all college players may not get paid. And really, it's up to you to come out with your own deals. But the best places are the best way to do that is the way Georgia says they do it, and that's to divide it up equally among the players. And I don't really think they do that, but that's what they say. All right, that's a good way to do it. Yeah, it is. But it's today's market. Get whatever you can get, and whatever you get is a blessing because a lot of players, great players, came through the system and didn't get a cent. So go figure. But JC, I appreciate you chiming in. Hit me up in my email box. You and Boss Cedric there. Maybe we can hook up for an interview one day and talk some college football, any kind of other sports. But until then, I'm going to come back on later on tonight. We're going to talk Texas A&M and Texas, and maybe watch a little basketball game at the same time. So until next time, I appreciate you guys checking me out. This has been Sports for Real. I'm out. Oh, it's my email box. Well, if you just comment on the show, if you just send a comment like you're doing, once the show ends, the box will still be up, and you should be able to send it that way. But if you what's it? Let me take it. Sports for Real 11 at Gmail. I think that's what it is. What's 9,000? That means you're out. Yeah, sports for real, number 4, 11 at Gmail. Hit me up. All right, JC, take it easy, man. Go and watch a little football before I have to go to work. You guys take it easy.